That one bullshit PlayStation trophy.
The Phantom Trophy in the medium is unlocked by successfully evading the demon creature without ever alerting it across multiple stealth sections in the game that occur over multiple chapters. This is basically the game's nemesis creature, so to speak, as he will constantly appear and be on the hunt to kill you as you progress through the game. But seeing as you don't really have any infinite ammo, rocket launchers or pistols or shotguns in this game to fight off the creature, you're gonna have to avoid it and use stealth. The trophy initially sounds simple, but this is probably the game's hardest trophy, and it's also a highly missable one that may force you to replay the game over again due to just how vague the game can be at counting what qualifies as being spotted by the demon. The first encounter has an automatic alert as this skull breaks off as you crouch near this little ledge, and the demon will hear it, burst through this wall and try and look for you. But this doesn't actually count as being spotted, it's more of a tutorial to show you that he can hear you. However, if you go on to make any noise yourself during these sections, it will likely void the trophy. So the trick here in this first section is to crouch and wait for the demon to move away, and then just tail it from a distance without it spotting you, like you are playing a GTA game or something. Once it gets to the top of the screen, it will go left, and now is your chance to head up to the exit point, where you are then safe. However, what the game doesn't tell you is that if you run at the last bit, the creature will hear you, even if you're in that corridor, and even if it doesn't chase after you and kill you, it will still void the trophy. Other ways that you may fail without even realising in any of the encounters, thus voiding the trophy, are, for example, if you happen to be running in an area that the demon suddenly spawns in, and for me this was just pure BS, as you can't always see what's happening, and it feels cheap to be spotted by the demon that way, especially when there are large gaps between the encounters. Being caught off guard like this sucks, and in this one, he was right by me, and even though he didn't see me, but instead heard me, like in that automatic example earlier, this one actually voided the run for me, but I didn't find out until about 20 minutes later, after getting through all of the encounters. Another problem is when crouched, you try and stand up to walk after the demon's gone. You might not notice that you're now walking instead of crouch walking, thus making noise. And if you're tailing the demon when this happens, then your run is over as it will hear you and spot you. The same can happen when you're doing that holding your breath move, as if it's held too long, she will just automatically stop holding her breath, and it's hard to tell if she's doing it or not when the game is so goddamn dark. So after silently getting past him in that first encounter and continuing on with the game, you will eventually get to the second encounter, and this one is much shorter and more simpler than the first, but again, it begins unexpectedly. After going through this hole between the lockers, the demon will suddenly spawn in behind you, and you have to now quickly walk into the camera right to the far side of this new room, and then crouch behind this block to avoid its detection. And at this point, the game now tells you about the holding your breath move with a prompt on screen, and if you don't hold your breath here, the demon will hear you when it comes right up to you. So you now just have to wait here, crouched and holding your breath, until the demon catches up and then walks into the next room. But you then need to wait until you've heard him fly away, despawning out of the area, before you go in there, otherwise he'll see or hear you. After another 5 minutes or so of gameplay, you will again be caught out by the demon as he suddenly appears in a corridor that you've just been walking through, and now you just need to quickly hide behind this thing in the dark corridor and wait for him to walk past you before you make your silent escape. And here is another easy way to fail. After avoiding him and heading back towards the mirror, it's tempting to just run when in this room, as he is miles away at this point looking for you in another room that you were previously in. Yet if you run in here, he can somehow hear you from rooms away, and it will void the trophy, but you won't really see anything on screen to highlight the fact that you've been spotted. The final encounter occurs after another sequence of gameplay, and when you go into this room, you first need to crouch and wait for him to walk around one side of this object in the middle of the room, and then you sort of follow him around to be able to crawl under this table or whatever it is before he comes and loops around and sees you. But at this point I felt like he did see me because he was looking right at me, and I heard a weird noise that I'd never heard before, so I just paused the game and reloaded the checkpoint because I didn't want to take any chances and fail right now at the final encounter. So I did this section over again, as it's just really hard to tell if you've been spotted or not. But this time he walked in a different direction, but I still managed to get past him stealthily and make it into the corridor. And at this point you would expect the trophy to pop, wouldn't you? After all, this was the last encounter and I've now successfully evaded him. But no, it doesn't actually pop here, and it doesn't actually pop at all until you've played through another 8 minutes or so of the game where the demon doesn't even appear, so the chances are you'll just think it is just glitched at that point. Why is it like this? That is just so unfair. The trophy should pop immediately after you get into this corridor, as it could easily make people restart when they didn't need to. 8 minutes of gameplay between the final encounter and the trophy popping is just BS. Another thing that annoys me about this trophy is that the medium on PS5 has trophy tracking stats, but it's a shame that there's just no percentage stat for this trophy, because it really could have done with a tally of like X of 4 so that you could see for certain after each encounter if you did it right or not. That would have helped immensely, and it's dumb that it wasn't included. But to be fair, the Phantom Trophy isn't a particularly tough one to get, as the stealth sections are pretty easy to get through. The problem is that it's just vague how the game is in what counts as being spotted or not, because the demon won't always chase you and kill you if he hears or sees you. Plus the fact that there's lots of gameplay in between each encounter, and how he just immediately spawns in out of nowhere and can hear you if you happen to be running, makes it really annoying. And the fact that there's a long gap after that last encounter and the trophy popping just adds to the BS, because you could easily think you failed it and just restart that whole thing when you would have got the trophy 8 minutes later, having progressed further through the game. So for me, that is why the Phantom Trophy in the medium is that one BS PlayStation trophy with a BS rating of